You gotta love Breitling. 2 years in a row now, they release their new releases exactly one day before Rolex is set to have their big release. Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso, and yes, today I am talking about the new Breitling Navitimer releases for 2022. Now 2022 is a very important year for the Navitimer because it celebrates the 70-year anniversary of when Breitling started supplying Navitimers to the AOPA, which is the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. This is often confused with the commercial release of 1954, which is when they started being sold to the public. That's why you often get two different dates between when the Breitling Navitimer was released. It depends on perspective. But as far as Breitling is concerned, it's 1952, and that's why this is a new anniversary model for the new Breitling Navitimer. Now, of course, when you re-release one of your icons, the Navitimer definitely being Breitling's most recognizable watch, you always want to be a little bit careful with what you actually do, what you actually change. But the good thing is that Breitling has done a great job with this. I think the changes they've made have been significant enough that you can tell the difference between this and its predecessor, but not so much that you don't recognize it or it ends up being lost to, sort of more current modern day trends. So let's take a look at what's different. The first big change you'll notice is, of course, the logo. Now, in 2018, Breitling got rid of the wings logo on pretty much all of its watches, save for a few. And this was a move that personally I never really liked. I never bought into this notion that, we have to get rid of the wings so people don't think we're only a pilot's watch brand. Like the anchor kind of told you that they made sea watches. And also, let's face it, if that was the case, no one would have ever bought Breitling before unless they were a pilot. But that's irrelevant now because for this new generation of Navitimer, they have brought back the wings in a certain capacity. What they've done is they've actually used the AOPA logo as the logo on the dial of the new Navitimer. And I think that's very appropriate, especially given the fact that they use the year that they introduced it to the AOPA as what they're defining as its anniversary year. So that makes a lot of sense in my view, and I'm glad that they've brought that back, because at the end of the day, the Navitimer is a pilot's watch. People don't need to make any confusion. No one's going to think it's a dive watch or a racing watch, for example. The next big change is the range of sizes. So the Navitimer has always been a big watch. It's not really hidden that. But it hasn't always had that much variety in sizing. This year that all changes because it's available in 41mm, 43, and 46. So it caters to all the different size ranges. It's much more accessible, and also because of its proportions, it's actually a much better looking watch in my view because they've reduced the thickness on it down to 13.6 millimeters for the 41 and the 43 millimeter versions and to 13.9 for the 46mm version. Moving on to one of the bigger changes is the colors that they have on offer. Now, one big difference that they've done, aside from the actual selection of colors, is that on almost every one except for the black dial versions and some of the white dial versions, the slide roll bezel is actually rendered in black instead of white like it was before. What this does, I think, is it just makes the watch look a lot less busy, which was my prime criticism, and I think for many, the difficult thing to wrap your head around with the Navitimer. It's a busy watch. So by stealthing out the slide rule, but still making it visible and legible, I think what it does is it just improves the overall balance on the dial, makes it look a little bit less busy. And also for something like the 43 or even the 46, I think it also reduces the size a little bit. It looks more like a traditional bezel. In terms of the color options, they still have the typical and traditional blue, black, white, or silver dials, but they've also released a lot of new colors that I think are very in keeping with what Breitling's new color palette is. So they have an ice blue similar to what we see with the Chronomat Platinum version. They have a minty green, which is very similar to that pistachio version that we saw on the Premiere last year. And then they also have a copper dial, which harks to the Chronomat. So I think what Breitling is doing is that they're really creating also a visual identity in terms of their colors. I spoke about this when I discussed the releases from Omega and that notion of the certain brands own certain colors. Breitling has clearly caught on to this notion of, Rolex owning certain colorways, and I think they're trying to make certain colors their own, especially things like that copper and that pistachio. On the movement side, things remain very similar, but they did make an aesthetic change, which was that they opened up the rotor, very similar to what they did on the Caliber B25 from the Datora, albeit that's a 7750 base movement. Just by opening up the rotor, I think it does a lot more justice to the B01. I was never a fan of the rotor that they were using before. It's one of the reasons why I always say that the B09 is a much better looking movement, because it just does away with the rotor, because they never really seemed to put much effort into nicely decorating the rotor before, so it didn't really do justice to what was underneath because it was covering it. Meanwhile, this new open rotor is not only better to see what goes on underneath, but it is also better decorated as well. So I think that's a big improvement and something I can't wait to see across the entire Breitling line with everything that has a B01 in it. Apart from that, they also made a few tweaks in terms of the finishing. There's a lot more satin finishing on the case, also a little bit more satin finishing on the bracelet as well, which is an option. So I think what that does, it helps it be a little bit more low key. But broadly what they've done is they've just cleaned up the Navitimer without taking away from any of its character, so to say. And it's still very much recognizable as a Navitimer, but you can tell the difference from this and its predecessor, for example. So that's just a quick summary of the new Navitimer. Overall, I think it's a great addition to the collection, a great evolution of the Navitimer line. I'm normally not someone who likes preserving the same design over and over again for years and years, but what I like is that Breitling only really does that with one model, which is the Navitimer. All of its other ones, it makes bigger changes. You look at the Chronomat, it was a huge change. And things like the Super Ocean, for example, I think those are just on their way to being replaced by a more revolutionary design. So because of that, I can accept Breitling being a bit conservative with their changes to the Navitimer, but not so conservative that it's like a certain crown-based brand, which I'll talk about in a different video. But in any case, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the new Navitimer? Which is your favorite? Which one would you get? Would you prefer this or some of its other competitors? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you like it and share it. If you want to see more pictures and infographics of watches as seen throughout this and all my other videos, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Shaluso. And if you want to see more videos of watches, then hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well so you know when the next video comes out. In any case, thanks for watching this video and we'll catch you on the next one.